Yeah, March 6th. All right. And there we are live on YouTube. Susan Michel, this mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. It is great to be here as always. I am the author of Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we are all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. I have my two beautiful Course in Miracles soul sisters with me today. Myrna Skoller is the author of Private Lessons with Jesus, which is a great companion to A Course in Miracles workbook for students. She's also published numerous books, which is so very impressive. How are you today, Myrna? You do need to unmute.
You did. Thank you. Thanks for asking. And I love your book as well. Um, and really, it's all tied into A Course in Miracles, and when we can really embody that and then write about it, it's really wonderful. So I enjoy your book too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely all about embodying the knowledge that we've been studying for over 35 years. That's what brings so much joy to our life. And Glorian is here as well. I'm so happy. How are you, Glorian?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here with you both. And I just want to say you're both terrific authors and yeah, and devoted to dedicated course students and facilitators. And I appreciate you both so much.
Great, great.
I wanted to say
And
hi to Dove, by the way. Dove, I see you've had a little bit of a mishap there, but you're still looking good. Okay, so your eye is a little blackened, but you're up there and fighting as usual. It's good to see you. Yeah. Well,
yeah, it's good to see everybody in this room. I'm so glad there's a few more people here. If anyone has anything to share, please feel free to let us know your thoughts on any subject that we're speaking about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I will start out with the introduction of my book, as I like to do. What I write in Surrender to Joy is my passion is God. He is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. And I just got back from a wonderful trip to the Dominican Republic. My husband and I were there for, well, it was supposed to be 6 nights, but we ran into some travel challenges. So it turned out to be 5 nights. And it definitely had its fair share of challenges, but there was a lot of joy and fun and beauty as well. I think the Dominican native people that live there, the Dominican natives, are just very warm and friendly and loving. And it was just so wonderful to meet them. My Spanish isn't as good as it was before, but I did my best. So I think my Spanish got a little better while I was there. I definitely love the ocean and the sun. There was a lot of waves, that I enjoyed. I love the salt water. You know, my analogy, God is the ocean. We are all waves coming from the ocean. God is the sun. We are all rays coming from the sun. So I had my fair share of ocean and sun. And one day that was really fabulous, that I really felt connected to God, to the meaning behind A Course in Miracles, the foundation of A Course in Miracles, I should say, was the day trip that we took. We went zip lining, horseback riding, dune buggy riding, and we went swimming in a cave with a disc jockey playing music while we were swimming in this cave. It was really wonderful. And I noticed what happened that day, which is why I say I felt so connected to source energy, to God, to the essence of who I am, is that I stopped judging everybody so completely. I did not see them as bodies. I saw through their bodies to the essence of who they were. And I just felt connected to everyone. They were people from all over the world, people with from all different skin colors, people that spoke all different languages, you know, fat, thin, didn't matter. It didn't matter what the body looked like, but I felt so connected to everyone there from within, even if I couldn't communicate with the person. You know, my husband and I found this couple that we became really close to. They barely spoke English. My Spanish was not in good form during this trip. They were from Argentina, but we communicated anyway. You know, somehow, even though we didn't speak the same language, we managed to communicate and to connect. And I really believe that's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. A Course in Miracles is teaching us to see through the form of whomever we meet, you know, to stop judging them and just see Christ's energy in them. You know, I noticed that there was this one young girl, she was 20 years old. You know, her vocabulary, she was American, but the way she spoke was so radically different than me, so polar opposite of me, you know. She used like words that I usually don't use, like dude, and you know, it was just, she spoke in slang where I speak very properly. I guess I get that from my upbringing, my father, but I just felt so connected to her. And really, that's what, again, that's when I feel connected to source energy. When I don't see someone's body, I just see through their external self and see their soul and see the love within them, because we are not our bodies. You know, A Course in Miracles makes that very clear. We are just here in this earthly classroom taking on these human bodies to learn a few lessons, and then we're going back to God in heaven. We're going back to our source connection when we're done with our bodies. So any thoughts, Myrna?
Yeah, you mentioned bodies. You know, it's such a powerful affirmation in A Course in Miracles. You know, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. That comes to me so naturally, that affirmation. It's a statement, really, that reminds me that our true identity really transcends physical limitations, and it remains rooted really in divine love and freedom, actually. So by repeating the affirmation, we reinforce the understanding that our essence really is unchanged and eternally connected to God, and it supports our journey toward peace and wholeness. In fact, I think it's a very good affirmation, which complements lesson 65, which is today's lesson, actually. My only function is the one God gave me. So I think that this lesson really does emphasize that our true purpose is not defined by worldly goals or personal ambitions, perhaps, but by the function assigned to us by God, which is ultimately to forgive and to bring love and to healing others and ourselves by forgiveness. And I think the lesson itself invites, it does, it's an invitation to set aside our distractions and focus on fulfilling our function, reminding us that peace comes from aligning with God's will. And we're not going to find it through our own will, which is the ego. And that engenders fear. You know, a meaningless world engenders fear. And that is, you know, a very frightening thought. You know, a meaningless world engenders fear, and it does, because when we're not fulfilling our function, what are we relying on? Relying on nothing, really. And what the world teaches us is only fear. And so repeating the affirmation and seeking guidance from within, I think we're encouraged then to trust that our true function is really simple, clear, and rooted in love. You know, the lesson aims to help us to let go of conflicting goals and find really much more clarity in our spiritual journey. And that's what we're given to really learn about and to discover. So when, you know, when such thoughts arise, I think what I do is just try to acknowledge them without judgment, and to try to bring myself back to the focus of the lessons affirmation, today's lessons affirmation. I am not well, now today's affirmation is my only function is the one God gave me. So to come back to that affirmation, we have to bring ourselves back gently, reminding ourselves that we're just being distracted by ego thoughts, and we find much greater peace, trusting that our mind can be quieted and really centered on what truly matters. Gloria, any thoughts about this?
Yeah, plenty of good thoughts here. Start with Susan. I love what you shared there, Susan, about your trip, and I'm glad you had such a wonderful time and, really practice the presence while being there in recognizing your brother as yourself. And I like what you shared about, God being the ocean. And once we identify with or God being the sun. So if we're looking at God is the sun, I am the sun, then we recognize that no clouds going by ever have any effect on that wholeness and that oneness and that shining light that I am. Um, and yeah, just think it was so beautiful that you were able to look on everyone with the eyes of Christ. So, when we recognize, it was reminding me of the holy instant and the special relationship. We recognize that every single relationship that we have is to be healed and then made holy, made one, made the same. And in that recognition, as you shared, that everyone's the same. You saw everyone with the eyes of Christ, with Christ's vision. And that's what we're really here to do, is to recognize that beyond every single concept and imagined projection that we see is that one light of Christ. So I love that. And I like what you shared, Myrna. All things are lessons that God would have me learn is what was coming to me, in that I'm not a body. I'm not a body. I'm free. I'm as God created me. And as you said, absolute truth. There's our freedom. Our freedom is in the acceptance of our divinity as we were created. And once we recognize that, to be free, we're all here with the cause. We want peace. We want peace. But we can't have peace without freedom. So if I look at that and say, if I'm going to continue to be under the ego thought system, the control, the thinking mind, that's going to obscure my freedom from me. So we're free when we've relinquished that fearful voice of the ego and have accepted the reality of what I am, not a body. I'm spirit in a state of grace forever, limitless in power and peace, but not just as words, but through that willingness to set that ego aside and allow that embodiment of that Christ consciousness to become what I am, move into the isness and beingness of what that's really, really saying. And I love what you said about our function being forgiveness. And that's really the only thing we're here to do, is to forgive. And when we recognize true forgiveness, what my brother did didn't occur. We can only recognize that through our mind being still. Because if we're in judgment, we're seeing duality, which means we're not recognizing that what my brother did didn't occur because we have some kind of idea about it. So our function is always forgiveness, to move into that space where I'm relinquishing the projections and the judgment of my mind, where Jesus tells us if we truly forgive, this world disappears. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gloria, and thank you, Myrna. Beautiful topics that you both touched upon. I mean, I guess going back to the subjects Myrna brought up, what came to mind is that in each and every moment, we have two choices. We can either trust God and remain in a state that is based on love, or block God and start projecting our fear onto our brothers. And when we give allegiance to the ego, we really feel that anxiety in our heart, and for me it's in my heart and it's in my stomach. You know, I had so many challenges on this trip to the Dominican Republic. And you know, the first travel day, we actually missed our connection going over there through no fault of our own. The first leg of our flight was delayed, and then we had to wait in line for 2.5 hours to try to get another flight into the Dominican Republic on Sunday. What we ended up doing is staying over in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in a hotel on the first night when we were supposed to be in Dominican. The airline gave us a credit card to use, or they sent the credit card number to the hotel. The airline's credit card got declined, so we ended up paying out of pocket for the hotel room on the first night. So there was just I won't go into details, but there was a lot of challenges. And you know what A Course in Miracles teaches us is that no matter what is going on, Dove just wrote in the chat room, you gotta laugh. That's right. The separation occurred when the Son of God remembered not to laugh. So, you know, during all of these challenges, there were times that I stayed in my right mind, and there were times when I was giving allegiance to the ego. And then Dove just wrote another chat. He wrote the credit card from the airline got declined. That is correct. The airline's credit card was declined, and it was a huge airline. So there were times that I was in my right mind and I just stayed connected to source energy. And there were other times that I gave my my allegiance to my ego. A great example of staying connected to God was the lady that was in the seat in front of me. You know, she was in the same predicament that I was in. She was missing her connection also. And she had a young 2-year-old son with her. So she knew she was going to miss her connection. She knew the trip was going to be challenging. And what she also stood in the exact same 2.5 hour line that I stood in to wait to talk to the airline representative about what we were going to do now in terms of getting to our destination. But because she had this 2-year-old little boy with her, she saw everything in a peaceful place, or at least that's what she extended a lot of love to her son. So when she realized she was going to miss her connection, she said to her son, "Guess what? We get to stay in Florida for an extra night, and it's going to be so much fun." So instead of getting upset, this little boy, just starts clapping his hands. And when she was waiting in this 2.5 hour line to talk to the airline representative, the little boy was just laughing and happy because the mother was in such a positive state of mind despite the challenges that she was facing. And, I'm sure if the mother had taken on the character traits of the ego and she had stressed out, the little boy would have picked up that energy filled with angst. But because she was because she chose to stay connected to love, this is the energy that her little boy picked up. And I think by traveling with her son, it was probably such an amazing experience for her, because she was disciplining her mind to stay in a positive place despite the challenges that the world was reflecting back to her. And really, that's what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. I always say, we don't grow despite life's challenges. We grow because of life's challenges. So when we are in situations that are difficult, to stay connected to our true self, to stay connected to source energy, is the most empowering place that we can remain in. That's the most empowering state of mind that we can reside in. And again, I mean, she was just, I don't know if she's ever heard of A Course in Miracles, but she certainly was really a terrific Course in Miracles student, because I was getting a little perturbed. I could feel my ego start to come in and get angry about the situation. But she was just really amazing, and I applaud her. And being around her energy did really help me as well. So that was a just wonderful, wonderful lesson that I was able to experience. Thoughts, Myrna?
I like your description about, what happened. I mean, I don't like it, of course not. I mean, it wasn't fun for you at the time, but it does show me that when things go wrong, if you can manage to stay in a positive state of mind, then you're really learning the lessons that we need to learn to understand that, if anything, like Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. It reminded me about a year ago when Pat and I traveled to Jamaica. And believe it or not, it took us 13 hours to get from Florida to New Orleans, where we were picking up our ship. Actually, it was a river cruise of the lower Mississippi River. Anyway, it took us 13 hours to get there. Why? Because everything went wrong. I mean, the flights were delayed, and we got there in the middle of the night, you know. But, again, these things happen. And if you can still enjoy the experience without letting it ruin anything, that's really the whole trick. I mean, it's the ego. What is the ego? The ego and the spirit, it's one against the other, really. And the ego and the spirit really are two fundamentally different ways of perceiving yourself and the world. The ego is described as the voice of separation, fear, limitation. It constantly seeks to reinforce the idea that we're isolated and we're so vulnerable. And it generates thoughts rooted in judgment and a desire to control the outcomes. which really does lead to anxiety and conflict. So, in contrast, the spirit really is the voice of love, the voice of truth. And I think the spirit reminds us that, reminds us of our inherent connection to a higher source. And it guides us when we recognize that connection and accept it towards a higher force. Then it guides us towards forgiveness and inner peace. So the ego's guidance really results in confusion and suffering, whereas the spirit, when I say the ego and spirit, that's the best way I can define it. So the spirit part of us gently leads us to acceptance and a sense of divine purpose. So when we choose to listen to the ego rather than spirit, just like it's emphasized really in lesson 65, today's lesson. So it allows us really to align with our true function and experience a world filled with meaning and love. And this shift at the heart of A Course in Miracles teachings really offers a path from fear to love, by teaching us the difference between the ego's illusion and the spirit's truth. So we're constantly aligning between both, and to choose spirit really is where we find our peace. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that?
Gloria?
Yeah, I just love what you both shared, and amen to that, Myrna. That's it. We have the answer on the way out. We just have to do it. But I was going to go, I was thinking of you, Susan, with your trip, and I know we had all that snow and everything. And I actually was thinking, I hope she doesn't have any kind of issues with this traveling, getting there. So, but I have to say, I think you handled it just so beautifully, despite, seeming difficulties. They really didn't have any effect on you. And that's really putting this course into practice. Certainly you acknowledge that this was annoying, which, we're not going to spiritually bypass and deny what we seemingly are feeling and thinking, but it gives us an opportunity to look at things differently. And I love it because, you really utilized a lesson I'm determined to see. And you did see. So you kept your mind focused on truth, being vigilant for God and the kingdom, which is what we're going to do. And then I heard Myrna also sharing, the frustrating experiences that we all have. And it usually comes to me, infinite patience, immediate effects. But it doesn't work if you say it like a mantra, infinite patience, immediate effects. The idea is to align with his strength, which is always forgiveness, and recognizing that, that's the infinite patience, the experience of what I am in Christ, because what couldn't I wait for if I'm in that experience of oneness to which there's nothing else? So everything's offering us that opportunity to bring our focus into presence and be in that state of the kingdom, the Christ consciousness. And I like what Myrna shared also. I don't know if you said this, but what was coming to me when you were speaking, it's all or nothing. So the idea is I've given up everything for nothing. Like when we really think about that, how ridiculous our attachments and investments are, that they're keeping us from the experience of everything, from I have and I am, the experience of the oneness that I was created. So we'll say, I want the peace of God, and we don't have to have the button there. That's what we have to remember. I can have that peace of God now if I drop the button. So I also love what you shared there, Myrna, about, acceptance. And that really is always the key, because as we find we're resisting, that's the ego control. And acceptance, we always go back to lesson 268. I let all things be exactly as they are on this level, and then in that recognition that all there is God's grace. So if I'm not seeing it, that but that I placed in there after I want the peace of God is what's obscuring that light of the world from me. And I like today's lesson also in the first paragraph, is what you really did, Susan. You recognize that my function is the one that God gave me. The idea for today reaffirms your commitment to salvation. You kept your mind focused on God and was determined to see in your commitment to salvation, which is oneness. It also reminds you that you have no function other than that. That's the only function we have, is to forgive and accept what we are. Both these thoughts are obviously necessary for total commitment. That's what you exercise, commitment to salvation. Salvation cannot be the only purpose you hold while you still cherish others. There's our but. I want the peace of God, but the full acceptance of salvation, the oneness with the Christ that I am, as your only function necessarily entails two phases: the recognition of salvation as your function and the relinquishment of all the other goals you have invented for yourself. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Interesting conversation. Yeah, I am determined to see. So to see beyond my circumstances, what a powerful affirmation and a powerful workbook lesson. And then you spoke about patience. I remember a quote that Marianne Williamson said years ago. The reward of patience is infinite patience. I for some reason that Marianne Williamson quote always stuck in my head, because there are so many times I find myself getting very impatient, like in a grocery line or wherever I need to wait, have to wait, I'm forced to wait. So I'll say that line that I got from Marianne Williamson: the reward of patience is patience, and it helps. Thinking about and the challenges that occurred, there were times when I did accept each moment exactly as it was. After we waited in line for 2.5 hours to speak to an airline representative, and we found out that we weren't going to get to Dominican Republic on Sunday, and we were forced to stay overnight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We took an Uber to the hotel. And once I just kind of, connected to the moment, I had a great talk with a lady that she was waiting for an Uber as well. She got stuck overnight in Florida as well. So we had a very uplifting conversation. Our Uber driver was super cool. He worked out a lot. I could see by his bill, just like my husband and I do. And I had a great conversation with the Uber driver. When I found myself just living in the moment and accepting whomever I was with and starting a nice conversation with them, that was a way to stay connected to source energy and to just that's when the stress goes away. That's when the stress subsides, when we can accept each moment exactly as it is. Okay, I missed my flight, but here I am waiting for an Uber. Here I am with this nice Uber driver. When you can accept each moment exactly as it is, the stress subsides, and that's how we stay plugged into our God socket, as I would say. That's how we keep ourselves connected to source energy. On Tuesday, Myrna brought up this quote, and I couldn't remember who originally said it, but I think it was Rumi. There is no good, there is no bad, there is no right, there is no wrong. It's just about accepting everything without judgment, without condemnation. And again, that is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us to do. And I remember this wonderful story that really exemplifies that point that Rumi made. That when things happen in life, okay, we missed our connection to the Dominican Republic, and then there were challenges on the resort as well. So there were numerous challenges, but when I could just accept everything without judgment, it was just just such an empowering state of mind to reside in. And who knows if what happened was necessarily good or bad. I asked ChatGPT for this story that I remember Alan Cohen, this great Course in Miracles teacher, once told. And it's a story from Taoism. And this was about who knows what's good and what's bad. Stop judging, stop condemning, just accept. So the story was, there was once an old farmer whose horse ran away. His neighbors came to confront him and said, "Such bad luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." I think the story goes on. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. Who knows? The next day, the horse returned and brought 3 wild horses with it. The neighbor said, "Wow, such good luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe." The following day, the farmer's son tried to ride one of the wild horses. He was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors said, "That's terrible, such bad luck." The farmer again said, "Maybe." Soon after, the army came through the village to draft young men for war. Because the son's leg was broken, he was not taken. The neighbors said, "How wonderful, such good luck." The farmer simply said, "Maybe." So who are we to know that what happens in life is either good or bad? It's just about to accept that everything is happening to us to teach us something, and to just remain emotionally even, emotionally stable, emotionally peaceful, trusting that God is always with us, trusting that God is protecting us, trusting that God has our back. The meaning, the story teaches that our judgments about events are limited. So thoughts, Myrna?
Yeah, yeah. You said I love the story, that you shared about the farmer. I mean, like there is no good or bad, really. The idea there is no bad or good. Only our thinking makes it so. That emphasizes really the power of our own perception. And it tells us that the judgments that we place on events, like you said, you missed a flight, or the flights were delayed, or whatever happens, whatever, it's just a matter of understanding that experience really arises, whether they be good or bad, from our own mind. And um, and and it only shows us that it's really just shaped by the ego's interpretations. So by recognizing that meaning in that particular meaning is really our own thoughts, that we're invited to release that. Then we're told that we need to release that, those rigid labels of good and bad, and instead just view life through the lens of acceptance and understanding. And the shift, when we feel the shift, it opens the way to greater inner peace, as we realize that the true value lies not in circumstances so much, but in how we choose to perceive and respond to them. You know, sometimes what I'm sometimes that causes fear in me still, believe it or not, is a thought. A thought can arise that kind of, I could be feeling perfectly peaceful, and suddenly a thought, an unwanted thought. And I read something just now in the Course in Miracles. I picked it up, lesson 33, and I'm going to keep using this affirmation, and that is, this thought reflects a goal that is preventing me from accepting my only function. So every time I have a thought that is unwanted or engenders fear, I'm going to really use that, because that really jumped out at me, to just keep saying that this thought reflects a goal that is preventing me from my only function. And what is my only function? Again, we go back to that. Our only function is the one God gave us. And what is the only function that He gave us? That would be just to have loving thoughts, forgiving thoughts, bring ourselves back to that moment, to the moment. Living in the moment, as you said before, means that fully engaging in with the present without being burdened in any way by regrets or past anxieties or past regrets or anxieties about the future. By choosing to dwell in the now, and we have the power to do that, we really open ourselves to the guidance of spirit and allows love to inform, or to guide our actions and our experiences. And this presence really enables us also to let go of judgment and control. Who's in control? We allow the ego to be in control, then we're back to square one. So it really it's a matter of embracing acceptance and peace in each unfolding moment. And that is our true function. Any thoughts about that, Glorian?
Yeah, beautiful sharing there. I just want to say what Lynn put in the chat here. Now you must learn that only infinite patience produces immediate effects. This is the way in which time is exchanged for eternity. Course in Miracles, text 5. And that's it. That is it. But we recognize, I like what you said there about Marianne, the reward of patience is patience. And you could just feel the rest in that. The reward of patience is patience because there's no resistance. So we recognize, even through that, what you were saying there, Susan, what you used was, I am responsible for what I see, which was accepting, not resisting, and not blaming, because that casting of blame that we put, well, this and that, and I mean, even if we entertain it for some time, we recognize that that's just going down the rabbit hole, and that incessant thinking is just going to definitely disturb our peace. So, and then about Rumi, it always used to come to me from Joel's teaching. There is no good, there is no evil, there's only God's love unfolding. And if we look at everything like that, there is no good, there is no evil, because there is no world, but God's love is unfolding to us. So we experience God's love through forgiveness. And the idea is where forgiveness is the only place where His love is revealed to us in that holy instant of the quiet mind. So we can work all of these things and bring it back to the stillness, and how the stillness is really what's going to move us out from that. And, I think it's important to recognize that everything that's seemingly happening is perfect for our unfoldment. Once we really accept that, we start to use it and not resist it and not blame and not project. And I like what Myrna shared there. She said something, and my dad always used to say this, there's no good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So, when we recognize what we can bring that to course terms, I've given everything all the meaning that it has for me. And then you said, Myrna, a meaningless world engenders fear. All thoughts are meaningless. Once we accept that every projection from the false mind is an attack on God. The world that I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. So a meaningless world engenders fear because attack thoughts have been projected from my unresolved fear and guilt on this world. And it's showing me what I think, and it's keeping me separate from what I am. So all I have to do is relinquish, like you said, I think, Myrna, the ego control. The ego is control. Once we recognize that, when we're trying to control our entire world by our misperception to keep ourselves separate, And every single one of those thoughts is an attack on God, is an attack on my reality. Then we can just stop it. That's the point. I think now we're all getting to this place where it's like, okay, just stop it. Don't participate in the insanity anymore. And that's what you really exemplified there, Susan. And I think that's just an absolute terrific example of walking, walking the walk. The idea of not just saying things, but really exemplifying them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gloria. And thank you, Myrna. Wonderful, wonderful thoughts. I'm feeling myself connecting to source energy. The more we talk and the more I contemplate these concepts, I love how you read what Lynn wrote, because that is right on point, right from A Course in Miracles. I'll read it again. Now you must learn that only infinite patience produces immediate effects. And then even the next line, unbelievably amazing. This is the way in which time is exchanged for eternity. I mean, eternity is to be totally present in the now, because there is no time. We're either basically connected to source, living in the moment, or giving allegiance to the ego and experiencing angst. To just accept everything that's happening in our life exactly as it is the most beautiful state of mind imaginable. And that is what Course in Miracles is teaching us to connect with more and more often. And then Dove wrote earlier something that I have not yet read. Dove wrote, if we truly forgive, this world disappears. That's, the three fastest ways to heaven. What is heaven? Heaven is a state of mind of peace, love, joy, and happiness. Forgiveness, acceptance, and gratitude, with forgiveness being the most important, because as we truly forgive our brother, we see through errors of any kind. We see his innocence, and as we see our brother's innocence, we feel our own innocence. I embody the essence of innocence. For me, that's one of the most empowering affirmations that I can think of. Just connecting to innocence, connecting to love. Just so empowering. When I listen to stories about Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford, I heard that Bill Thetford, I believe he passed on from his body at a fairly young age. I can't remember exactly. I think it was about 69. I do remember hearing that he was practicing A Course in Miracles very diligently. And there was this one day where he was supposed to meet some friends and go shopping, but he said he wanted to stay behind, and he was just kind of dancing and laughing in the lawn, and then he dropped dead of a heart attack. Something like that. I might not be getting it perfectly, but I think he really practiced a lot of forgiveness, so he was really in a place of radical trust, and maybe he died at a young age because he learned all of the lessons that his soul needed to learn here in this earthly classroom. But I just think that's such a beautiful story. He died laughing. Wouldn't that be just so beautiful? I think when we do pass on and we do discard our bodies, I think death is harder for the people we leave behind than it is for the person who dies, because I do believe that when we release our body, we go home to heaven, and we return to a place that is just unconditional love. I've heard lots of stories about that. Famous or well-known Course in Miracles teacher, Rod Shellberg, a doctor, he talks about that, how he has escorted souls from their body to the other side, and they're always very happy after releasing their body. I totally believe that. And then I think it was either Myrna or Glorian. You brought up about attack. I think it might have been Glorian. It's when someone attacks us, that is coming from the other person's ego. Now, someone's attack cannot hurt us. It's impossible. The only way we can get hurt or upset when someone attacks us is if we defend our position, because defensiveness is based on fear, and that is coming from an egoic mindset. Someone else's attack has no power over us, none at all. The only way we can get hurt is if we attack back. And, there are numerous stories. I have a recent story about my trip, the airport. We were my husband and I were running from one flight to another flight. This is coming home. We were so scared that we were going to miss our connection again, and we didn't want to spend, another night at the hotel. This time we were in New York City. We didn't want to spend another night at the hotel at the JFK airport. We wanted to make our connection, so we were kind of racing through the airport, and by mistake, my bag hit a TSA representative. Not hard, but it hit her arm. And then she immediately snapped, why are you running? Why are you hitting me? She just yelled at me, and I look back, and in an instant, I realized I have two choices. I can defend my position, because who is she to yell at me? Or I can let it go and send her love. I chose option number two. I'm so sorry. And, again, it's not what you say as much as it is what thought you think. Are you going to go to love, or are you going to go to fear? I went to love in my mind. I apologized. I sent her love. And there you go. Her words had no power over me. So again, the world teaches us that we must defend our position to stay strong, because or else people are going to take advantage of us. A Course in Miracles says, no, no, no. The only way we can get hurt is when we defend our position. What we need to do is drop any defenses we might have and love this person. And then we will stay connected to source energy. That's what Jesus did. That's why he is our role model. That Jesus is he became an enlightened master, and that is what he is teaching us to do in A Course in Miracles. Right, Myrna?
Yeah, I like that it reminded me of a profound insight in the Course in Miracles, and that is the phrase, if I defend myself, I am attacked. I really like that. If I defend myself, I am attacked, because I think it sort of captures the insight that, the act of self-defense just presumes that there's an existence of a threat, and it reinforces the belief in separation. It's all it really does. So when we feel compelled to defend ourselves, we accept the ego's premise that we're vulnerable and that we have to protect ourselves. And that only strengthens our sense of isolation and fear. So this defensive mindset actually invites attack, not necessarily from others, but as a reflection of our own inner conflict and anxiety. Excuse me? I thought Glorian had to say something about that. So I'm just, so by choosing not to defend ourselves, we align with the spirit's guidance rather than trusting in our own safety and and this doesn't mean that we have to be passive and allow harm to invade our privacy or whatever we're feeling, but rather a willingness to let go of fear-based reactions and just respond as you did with clarity and peace. And then when we release the need to defend ourselves, I think we open the way to true understanding and healing and affirming our unity with others, and to again connect to a higher source. We said, and by sending love, you mentioned sending love. It's a conscious way to choose to extend kindness and forgiveness, and we're forgiving ourselves as well as the other. And this can be, simply as simple as offering a peaceful word, like you said, I'm sorry, forgive me, or whatever. And that's really all that you need to do. So, and by sending love, it's also a silent blessing, with our own positive intentions. So, sending love means letting go of judgment and ego-driven motives, and instead reacting from a place of compassion. And each loving thought or gesture really does reinforce our connection. Again, reinforce our connection to spirit. And then we commit to our true function. And again, we go back to that. What is our true function? The function God gave us, which is really to be peaceful and to forgive. So that's how we heal the world. Right, Susan?
Glorian?
Yeah, I just love this. I love what you're both sharing. I love that beautiful flow there, Myrna. Wow. And I agree with you, Susan. We can just really feel the energy of presence here with us today. I love what you shared, Myrna. If I defend myself, I am attacked. And taking that time to recognize that it's really the same thing. So both the shield and the sword have to be laid down together. Otherwise, it's just perpetuating the same false thinking. And recognize I'm affected only by my thoughts, and only my condemnation injures me. We're bringing ourselves back again to taking that responsibility. And someone said something about the eternally present. What came to me when we were speaking about the now, the eternally present in the now, the holy instant, which is our release from fear. And it really can just be summed up like that. And I love what you shared there, the story about Bill, Susan. And the way I understand it, he was like living the life fantastic. And he was like, yeah, I've truly forgiven. So, it came to me like total forgiveness, right? Complete forgiveness. Jesus tells us this world disappears. So, did he see himself as dying? Or did he just transcend into what he is? I am spirit through that complete forgiveness. So we seemingly see him that he died, but that's our concept. That's the concept that we hold of death in the false mind. So, there really is no death unless we have that false belief in it. And yeah, I years ago, when I was meditating, I guess I was in the early 30s, what have you. And I was in deep meditation, and it came to me that the more that you align yourself with your spiritual identity, the easier your transition will be. And I know in the NDE, when I was seemingly dying to everyone else, I was not having that experience for myself. So I watch everyone around me die because that's my concept, my false belief in a sense of being separate from God. But that's coming from my unhealed mind because there is no death. There's only eternal life. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I looked up the age of Bill Thetford, and I guess it says cause of death, heart attack. He was 65 years old when he left his body, and he died on July 4th, which is very interesting. July 4th, 1988. So again, his body learned all the lessons he was born to learn, and then it was time for him to release this body that he borrowed
I missed what you
for
said.
a
How
few
old was he?
years.
How
What?
old was he? I missed what you said. How,
65 years old. 65
oh,
years old. He died on July 4th, 1988, at the age of 65.
when I was dying, I was 54. And in that voice of thoughts that was coming to me in that process, I was like, I'm too young to die. And what I heard very distinctly was that does not matter because there is no age. There are no bodies. So that's the whole idea. It's just the lessons learned that's important to us.
Yeah, I wanted to just
Well,
say, to jump in for a second to tell Gloria that I love the thing about patience you said, that patience, becomes both the means and the reward, the reward of patience is patience itself. I like that because each moment we just choose patience, we deepen our capacity for peace. It does. It just does. So I wanted to just tell you that.
I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that was,
I
yeah,
love that also.
yeah, I think that was
So
from
I
text five. I think that's from text five.
Yeah.
So it is 2:02, and I will end with A Course in Miracles intro. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is love. I love you so much, Myrna and Glorian and Dove and Lynn. And there's a few other wonderful people here as well. Thank you, thank you. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Susan.